Most bulks fail, not because people don't eat enough, not because they don't train hard. They fail because the moment someone decides to bulk, they treat it like permission to stop thinking, eat more, lift heavy, repeat, and somehow, months later, the scale is up 15 pounds, but the mirror looks the same or worse. The strength gains don't match the weight gain. The energy is trash, and the bulk has quietly become a slow drift toward a physique you didn't want. Here's the uncomfortable truth about bulking mistakes. You can eat in a surplus every single day and still gain almost nothing useful. You can hit your calories, show up to the gym, and watch the scale climb, while your actual muscle growth stalls because of errors you didn't know you were making. Errors that have nothing to do with effort and everything to do with strategy. This video is called 14 Crucial Bulking Mistakes You Are Still Making. And that title isn't clickbait. These are the silent killers of a bulk. The habits that feel productive but aren't. The assumptions that seem logical but cost you months. Some are nutrition math. Some are training gaps. Some are psychology. And almost all of them are invisible until you know what to look for. Before we start, this is general information, not medical advice. If you have specific health concerns, talk to a professional. But if you're a lifter who wants to actually build muscle during a bulk instead of just getting heavier, these 14 mistakes are where most people quietly lose. Let's get into it. Number 1, dirty bulk equals faster muscle. You've seen it. The guy who announces he's bulking, then spend the next 3 months eating like every meal is his last. Fast food, ice cream, whatever fits in the surplus. The scale jumps. He posts about it. And for a few weeks, it looks like progress. But then you notice, his lifts aren't moving as fast as his body weight. He's sluggish in the gym. His sessions get shorter. And by month 4, he's talking about how he needs to cut soon because things got out of hand. The dirty bulk is tempting because it offers instant feedback. The scale moves fast. You feel like you're doing something. And culturally, it's almost a rite of passage, proof that you're serious about gaining. But the research on off-season physique nutrition consistently points to a different reality. Modest surpluses and conservative rates of gain tend to produce better muscle-to-fat ratios, especially as you get more advanced. Large surpluses don't force your body to build muscle faster. They just give it more raw material to store as fat once the muscle-building machinery is maxed out. The real cause of a dirty bulk isn't even the fat gain. It's the training quality collapse. You feel gross. Digestion becomes unpredictable. Sessions get harder to finish. And suddenly, the bulk that was supposed to build muscle is just making you heavier and more tired. The correction is simple. Bulk like an adult. Controlled surplus. Performance-driven meals. Repeatable habits. Boring works. Chaos doesn't. Number 2, you don't track the trend, only the day. Monday morning, you step on the scale. It's up 2 pounds from Friday. Panic. You cut back on food that day, or you tell yourself your metabolism is broken, or you decide the bulk isn't working and it's time to try something new. All because of one number. This is how most people track weight. Emotionally, reactively, and with zero context. And it's one of the quietest ways to sabotage a bulk. Short-term body weight fluctuates constantly. Glycogen shifts, water retention, sodium intake, sleep quality, gut content, stress. A single weigh-in tells you almost nothing about actual tissue change. But because humans love immediate feedback, we treat that number like a verdict. What happens next is surplus whiplash. You overeat after a low weigh-in because you think you're behind. You undereat after a high one because you think you've gone too far. Your intake becomes inconsistent. Your training energy becomes unpredictable, and your bulk turns into a guessing game where the scale is always lying to you. The fix is straightforward. Track a weekly rolling average, not a single day. Pair it with waist measurements and gym performance. When you zoom out, the noise disappears and the trend becomes clear. Many lifters see no change for 2 or 3 weeks, then a sudden jump, not because anything magical happened, but because water finally shifted. Trends beat emotions. Every time. Number 3, you keep changing your program mid-bulk. New program every 2 weeks. New exercises every session. a logbook that looks more like a random sample than a training history. You tell yourself you're optimizing, trying new things, staying ahead. But what you're really doing is making it impossible to know whether anything is working. Program hopping is seductive because it feels like a reset button. When progress stalls, or when you just get bored, switching everything up gives you the illusion of forward motion. You're busy. You're experimenting. You're not stuck. You're evolving. Except you're not building anything. Progressive overload requires stability. Periodization exists because planned, repeatable progression beats chaos for long-term adaptation. If you can't compare this week's bench press to last month's, you have no idea whether your bulk is producing strength. If you're constantly rotating exercises, you never develop the skill or mind-muscle connection that makes those exercises effective. You end up training hard without training smart. The real cost is invisible. Your body might actually be improving, but your constant changes hide the signal. You can't identify what's working because nothing stays constant long enough to measure. The correction is simple. Keep your core lift stable for a training block, usually 6 to 12 weeks. Change accessories strategically when there's a reason, not impulsively when you're bored. Let exercises get good before you abandon them. The fastest way to stall is to never let anything work. Number 4, you treat protein like a vibe, not a target. You include protein. There's a shake in your bag. Chicken shows up sometime. You're not ignoring it. But when you actually add up your daily intake, it's all over the place. High one day, low the next, and averaging somewhere below where it needs to be. Meanwhile, you've got 3 different protein powders in your cabinet, and you're convinced you're doing everything right. This is the vibe approach to protein. You think about it, you gesture toward it, but you don't actually hit a consistent number, and it matters. Meta-analyses on muscle gain suggest that protein intake up to around 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day is strongly associated with gains in fat-free mass, with some evidence supporting higher intakes depending on context. Distribution matters too. Spreading protein across multiple meals appears to help maximize muscle protein synthesis, compared to dumping it all in one sitting. When protein is inconsistent, you get the soft bulk, extra calories without enough building material. Your body has the energy to grow, but not the raw materials. The result is more fat gain for less lean gain, and a physique that looks puffy instead of built. The correction is to set a protein floor, a minimum daily number you hit no matter what. Once that's locked in, fill the rest of your surplus with carbs and fats. Protein is the anchor. Everything else is secondary. Many lifters plateau on a bulk, not because calories are low, but because protein is a moving target. Fix that, and the bulk starts working. Number 5, you eat too little fiber and wonder why you feel awful. You're 3 weeks into the bulk. Calories are up, training is solid, but something's off. You're bloated constantly. Digestion is unpredictable. Some days you're starving. Other days you can't look at food. And the whole thing just feels harder than it should. This is what happens when bulking becomes eat calorie-dense food and ignore everything else. Fiber gets skipped because it's filling. Vegetables disappear because they don't fit the macro math. Whole grains and legumes get replaced with white rice and cereal because they're easier to eat in volume. And slowly, your gut stops cooperating. Systematic reviews link fiber intake to satiety and appetite regulation. Soluble fiber slows gastric emptying and increases perceived fullness. Most people underconsume fiber, even when they're not bulking. When you actively avoid it to make room for calories, you're setting yourself up for appetite chaos. Either you're hungry all the time because nothing fills you up, or you're wrecked after every meal because your digestion can't handle the volume. The irony is that many lifters complain they can't eat enough, when the real issue is food selection. Their stomach isn't too small. Their diet is just poorly built. The correction is to keep fiber moderate and consistent. You don't need to eat salads at every meal, but zero plants is a recipe for bulk burnout. Build fiber in gradually, and your appetite will stabilize. Your digestion will thank you. Number 6, you let liquid calories replace real meals. The mass gainer strategy: blend up 1,000 calories, drink it twice a day, hit your numbers, and call it bulk. On paper, it works. In practice, It usually falls apart within a few weeks. You're either always hungry because the shakes don't register as real food, or you're constantly bloated because you're drinking more than your body wants to process. Either way, actual meals become an afterthought. Liquid calories are tempting because they're easy. You don't have to cook. You don't have to chew. You just drink and move on. But multiple reviews have discussed how beverages tend to produce weaker satiety and compensation responses compared to solid foods in many contexts. Your body doesn't count them the same way. So you end up hitting calories while your hunger signals go haywire. The deeper cost is nutritional quality. Gainer shakes are usually just protein, carbs, and maybe some added vitamins. They don't replace the micronutrient density of actual food. Over time, you end up with the classic bulk complaint. I'm eating enough, but I feel like trash. The correction isn't to eliminate shakes. It's to use them as a supplement, not a foundation. Real meals come first. Shakes fill gaps. When liquid become your main calorie source, the bulk gets fragile. The most common gainer shake failure isn't the calories. It's that people stop wanting normal food. Number 7. You ignore sleep while trying to grow. Late nights. Inconsistent schedule. You tell yourself it doesn't matter because you're young, or because you'll catch up on the weekend, or because sleep is for people who don't have goals. Then you show up to the gym and wonder why the weights feel heavier. The pumps are weak, and every set feels like a grind. Sleep is where muscle actually gets built. Studies show that sleep deprivation and restriction can reduce muscle protein synthesis and shift the hormonal environment toward catabolism. Reviews indicate that consecutive nights of poor sleep can reduce force output in compound movements. You're literally weaker when you're underslept, and the recovery you're counting on to turn your surplus into muscle isn't happening. But the damage goes beyond the gym. Sleep restriction messes with appetite regulation. People tend to crave more ultra-palatable, calorie-dense foods when they're tired. Perceived effort goes up for the same output. You work harder, recover worse, and eat sloppier. It's a triple hit. The correction is to treat sleep like a growth supplement you can't buy. 7 to 9 hours, consistent timing, and an actual routine. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make for good content. But many lifters who call themselves hardgainers are actually just hard sleepers. You can't out-eat bad recovery, and you can't out-train it either. Number 8. You bulk with only big lifts and neglect weak links. Squats, bench, deadlifts, maybe some rows. That's the bulk. You're chasing strength, hitting compounds, and assuming that heavyweight equals full development. Then you look in the mirror and notice your arms are lagging, your delts are flat, your upper chest is invisible, your calves are the same size they were 2 years ago. You look strong, but you don't look built. Compound lifts are valuable. They're efficient. They build a foundation. But hypertrophy is local. Muscles grow when they receive direct tension, sufficient volume, and appropriate angles. Compounds don't fully provide that for every muscle group. Your triceps might get work from bench press, but they probably need more. Your rear delts definitely need more. And if you've been squatting for years without direct calf work, those calves aren't going to magically appear. The more advanced you get, the more this matters. Systemic lifts stop, giving full body growth returns. Your stronger muscles dominate the movement, and your weak links stay weak. The correction is to keep compounds as your anchors, then invest in accessories that attack specific, lagging areas. Most "I need better genetics" complaints are really, "I never train my rear delts, lateral delts, or calves seriously." You can change that. It just requires admitting that heavy squats alone won't build your whole physique. Direct work isn't optional. It's how bulks actually show in the mirror. Number 9, you never push conditioning, so workouts get worse. You're halfway through a leg session and you're already gassed. Not because your quads are fried, because your lungs can't keep up. Rest times stretch longer. Sets get cut short. By the end of the workout, you're surviving, not training. And you tell yourself that being out of breath is just part of lifting heavy. It's not. It's a sign that your work capacity is holding back your hypertrophy. Lifters avoid conditioning because they're scared of the interference effect, the idea that cardio kills gains. But concurrent training research shows the interference is smaller than people think, and it depends heavily on what kind of conditioning you're doing. Running tends to interfere more than cycling. High volumes interfere more than moderate doses. Smart conditioning that supports lifting without competing with it can actually improve your training quality. When your conditioning is trash, your volume tolerance tanks. You can't get through enough sets to stimulate growth, especially on big muscle groups like legs and back, where systemic fatigue is huge. The bulk stalls not because your muscles can't handle more, but because your lungs quit first. The correction is to add a small, consistent conditioning dose that doesn't sabotage your leg days. Low-impact options like cycling or incline walking, placed away from lower body sessions, tend to work well. The goal isn't to become a runner. It's to not be winded before your muscles are actually challenged. The lifter who hates cardio often just hates being out of shape. Number 10. You don't increase training volume as body weight rises. You've gained 10 kilograms since the bulk started. The scale is up and you're proud of that. But here's the problem. Your training hasn't changed. Same sets, same weights, same effort. You're bigger, but the stimulus is exactly the same as when you were lighter. This is the maintenance bulk. Body weight rises, but strength and muscle don't keep pace. You're not progressing, you're just getting heavier. And because the scale is moving, you don't realize the bulk is stalling until months later, when you look back and wonder why so little actually changed. Bigger bodies often need bigger stimulus to keep adapting. Off-season guidance emphasizes structure progression alongside measure weight gain. If you're eating in a surplus but not increasing productive training stress, the extra energy has nowhere useful to go. It gets stored, not built. The correction is intentional. As you gain, add stimulus. That might mean slightly more volume, better execution on your lifts, or progressive overload on key metrics. It doesn't mean doubling your workout overnight. It means making sure the training evolves alongside the body weight. If your lifts don't rise at all while you gain weight, you're not getting stronger. You're just becoming heavier. That's not a bulk. That's a slow drift. Number 11, you fear gaining any fat, so you undereat. You call it lean bulk. You track everything. You're technically in a surplus, on paper, but the scale barely moves. Weight gain is so slow, you can't distinguish it from normal fluctuations. And deep down, you know why you're scared. Scared of losing your abs. Scared of looking soft. Scared of committing to something that might make you temporarily less lean. So you call it bulk, but you eat like someone on maintenance with anxiety. Off-season bodybuilding recommendations consistently center on a controlled, modest rate of gain, not a zero-fat fantasy. Some fat gain is part of the deal. The goal is to manage it, not eliminate it entirely. When you try to bulk without accepting any fat accumulation, your surplus becomes so small it's basically non-existent. You're spinning your wheels month after month, waiting for muscle to appear without ever providing conditions for it. The cost is time. Months of bulking with minimal muscle gain, followed by frustration, followed by program hopping, followed by more frustration. All because you were trying to do two opposite things at once. The correction is mental as much as practical. Accept small, controlled fat gain as a cost of building muscle. Then manage it with structure, endpoints, phases, and adjustments. Lean bulks work. Fear-based maintenance disguised as a bulk doesn't. The leanest bulk is often the one that feels too boring to be working. Number 12. You use hardgainer as an excuse to eat randomly. You've said it. I'm a hardgainer. It explains why bulking is hard for you, why you can't seem to gain weight, why your metabolism is different. And slowly, that label becomes armor, protection against having to actually examine what you're doing. Here's what hardgainer often looks like in practice. No meal plan, random snacking, missed meals during the day, then a chaotic evening where you try to make up for it with whatever's available. Calories are inconsistent. Protein is inconsistent, and the surplus that's supposed to drive muscle gain is more of a suggestion than a reality. True metabolic outliers exist. Some people genuinely have higher energy expenditure or appetite issues that make gaining weight harder, but most self-described hard gainers are simply inconsistent eaters with high daily variability. The problem isn't their metabolism, it's their system or lack of one. The correction is to replace identity with strategy. Same breakfast every day. Same protein anchors. Planned snacks that don't require decision-making. A repeatable structure that guarantees a surplus without relying on willpower or memory. Boring, predictable, and effective. The hardgainer label feels like an explanation, but it often becomes an excuse. Planning beats mythology. Structure beats storytelling. And when you stop hiding behind the identity, you can finally address the actual problem. Number 13, you don't plan meals, so you miss calories by accident. You intend to bulk. You know you need to eat more. But then the day happens. Work gets busy. You skip breakfast or grab something small. Lunch is rushed. By evening, you're way behind on calories. So you try to cram everything in at once. You eat until you're uncomfortable, sleep poorly, wake up with no appetite, and repeat the cycle. This is the accidental deficit bulk. You're not undereating on purpose. You're just not planning. So life makes the decisions for you, and life doesn't care about your surplus. The easiest bulks succeed because they reduce decision-making. Protein distribution research suggests spreading intake across multiple meals helps hit daily targets more reliably. When you pre-commit to anchors, 2 or 3 meals you always hit no matter what, the rest of the day becomes manageable. You're not starting from zero every morning. You're just filling in gaps around a structure that already exists. The cost of no planning is calorie inconsistency, appetite chaos, and poor training fuel. You're either behind and scrambling or you're stuffed and sluggish. Neither is optimal. The correction is simple. Pick your anchors. Meals that happen automatically without negotiation. Once those are locked in, the surplus takes care of itself. You don't need a perfect meal plan. You need a reliable one. I can't bulk often just means I can't decide what to eat repeatedly. Solve that and the rest follows. Number 14, you don't set an end point, so the bulk becomes your personality. You started bulking 8 months ago, then 12. Then it just kept going. There was no plan to stop, no checkpoint to evaluate, no moment where you step back and ask whether this was working or whether it was time to shift gears. The bulk became the default, and now it's not a phase. It's your identity. This is a forever bulk. It happens because stopping feels like admitting failure. If you're still bulking, you're still building. If you cut, you have to face the results. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know the ratio of muscle to fat wasn't what you hoped for. So you keep going, hoping more time will fix it. Physique nutrition recommendations frame off-season eating as a phase, not a permanent state. Planned endpoints create accountability. You can evaluate whether the surplus worked, whether the training delivered, and whether it's time to consolidate your gains with mini-cut or maintenance phase. Without that structure, you're just drifting. The cost compounds over time. More fat accumulation, declining insulin sensitivity for some people, mental burnout from never feeling finished. The bulk that was supposed to build your physique becomes a thing that holds a hostage. The correction is to set checkpoints. Define when the bulk ends before it starts. Treat it like a project with a deadline, not a lifestyle with no off switch. The people who look like they bulk perfectly usually have strict start and stop dates. That's the secret. A good bulk isn't exciting. It doesn't make for dramatic transformation posts or viral content. It's controlled, boring, and repeatable. The same meals, the same training structure, the same sleep schedule, week after week, with small adjustments and steady progress that only becomes visible when you zoom out far enough. That's not what most people want to hear. They want a hack, a shortcut, a trick that makes the surplus feel effortless and the gains feel fast. But the lifters who actually build muscle during a bulk aren't doing anything special. They're just avoiding mistakes that quietly drain everyone else's progress. You've now seen 14 of those mistakes. Some are nutrition math, some are training gaps, some are psychological traps, and almost all of them are fixable once you know what to look for. So here's the question. Which one have you been making? Drop it in the comments. Be honest. The first step to fixing a problem is admitting it exists. If this helped, subscribe. More content like this is coming. And if you want to actually build muscle on your next bulk instead of just getting heavier, start by eliminating the errors you didn't know you were making. That's where real progress begins.